The first person who combated the bubonic plague in any sort of sensible or helpful way was Michel de Nostradam, more familiarly known as Nostradamus. Born in 1503, Nostradamus is sometimes reported to be a wizard who predicted the end of the world. People have come to think he had magical abilities because Nostradamus spent his later years sitting in a castle with his wealthy second wife, writing books of predictions about events he thought would happen. Those publications were common for somewhat famous people to produce at the time. That's not the same as being a wizard. That's just a thing people who are famous for being smart do. He was an avid reader, interested in the scientific advances of his own time, as well as the medical arts of the past. Without antibiotics, no one could truly cure people once they had the plague, but Nostradamus was unusually successful at finding effective methods to deter the disease. Many of those methods stemmed from Nostradamus' own rather modern preferences regarding cleanliness. Some of Nostradamus' methods included getting the corpses out of the street. Obviously, having corpse pits is a disaster. You need to bury the dead, if only because having them lying around is a surefire way to attract those flea-carrying rats. Also, when people see bodies lying in the streets, they become absolutely terrified. Given that fear is the enemy of reason during disease outbreaks, it's a good idea to try to keep the streets clean. Removing soiled linens. Filthy bedding provided an especially great home to plague-carrying fleas. Disposing of linen should be easy, but think about how much you hate the idea of changing your sheets when you're sick. Now think about a world where many people wore the same outfit for a whole year, and where no one had taught you that changing linens was a chore you were supposed to do. Still, society was making progress. Drinking boiled water. Though not as much fun as onion broth, drinking boiled water was effective, especially when the rivers were swimming with corpses. Seriously, just full of corpses. The Pope had to bless the Rhone River in France because it contained so many bodies, and people wanted to believe their young ones were in holy ground. Although the bubonic plague wasn't transmitted by water, drinking contaminated water could result in other health problems, which would weaken a person's immune system and make them more susceptible to the plague. Bathing. Good hygiene practices greatly reduce the risk of flea infestations. Nostradamus himself bathed daily. However, that was an anomaly. Most people in medieval times took 2 baths a year. Bathing was thought to cause disease and death by widening the pores and allowing the plague to enter the body more easily. Nostradamus may have developed this revolutionary bathing theory from his own readings of history. Getting fresh air. Many people shut themselves up in sick rooms, even more so when people were afraid that the air itself was polluted with plague. Pope Clement VI famously surrounded himself with torches to try to burn away the supposedly poisonous fumes. Going outside and getting exercise, especially in the countryside, could be effective in boosting the immune system. The 10% of those who recovered from the plague generally had robust and healthy immune systems. Eating a magic pill. Many people on the internet want to credit Nostradamus' success in combating the plague to the fact that he had a magic wizard pill. But he didn't. He did make a rose pill that was a good source of vitamin C. Taking vitamin C every day, especially if your diet is otherwise lacking in it, generally strengthens the immune system. As to whether or not Nostradamus' methods were utterly essential or were only mildly helpful, we can say both. All of his ideas were so much better than stuffing live pigeons into sores. We could view drinking clean water and not sleeping in soiled linens as some of the first building blocks in what would become modern sanitation and public health. That said, even if you went for long walks and popped those vitamin C pills like M&Ms, it would not necessarily stop you from getting the plague in the 16th century. It would make dying from it a little less likely, but if you got it, you were probably still going to die. By the 18th century, outbreaks of the bubonic plague had become much less common than during medieval times. The decrease was largely due to more societies developing basic standards of sanitation and to making improvements in personal hygiene. But the bubonic plague never went away entirely. It still exists today. The World Health Organization reports that in 2013 there were 783 cases worldwide. 126 people died. About 10 people contract the disease in the United States every year. Fortunately, today, the disease is generally treated with the antibiotic streptomycin and is curable so long as it is caught early. The solutions Nostradamus proposed seem so obvious now in this very clean world filled with antibiotics. Don't sleep in filth, bathe yourself. Yes, of course those ideas are right. It's easy to scoff at anyone who thought exploding frogs like firecrackers was a good cure, especially when the cause of the disease seems so apparent now. But have some sympathy for the people gobbling down their emeralds. It is disheartening to think how simple and straightforward the cures for the diseases that we are desperately researching today will seem to people in the future.